Hi everyone. A situation that I'm going to talk about that I personally experienced happened just over 5 years ago. It was a time that I had gotten into a pretty bad car accident. It was February of 2013. I was 15 years old at the time, and I had my little brother with me. He was in the passenger seat, and at the time he would have only been 12. So it kind of began, my mom's a school teacher, so with it being February, she had parent-teacher conferences. Well, my brother and I were just hanging out at home, and I had gotten a call from my mom. She had asked me and my brother to come eat with her before she had her first conferences starting at 5 o'clock that day. So we had met her to eat, and everything was fine. We had gotten back into the car, and we were just going to go home for the evening, and she was going to take off and go back to school so she could do her parent-teacher conferences. Well, we came up to an intersection. We have to pass an intersection to get to my house, and before I could get through the light, my light had turned yellow and was in the process of turning red. Well, it had turned red before I could make it through the stoplight. And about this time, before I could get through, I noticed that a semi was headed, and before I knew it, my brother and I were hit by a semi. The semi was in the far right lane coming from the right, and we were going straight through the intersection. We weren't hit by any other cars going the opposite way or any cars in the left lane, but just so happened to be hit by a semi who had, his light had turned green, and so he didn't stop and unfortunately just blew through the light and hit us. This semi had turned my car completely around, and it was just a mess. The car was totaled, but that was obviously my least of my worries. I was more worried about my brother and his safety, and it was just a mess. So the first thing that I do is I look at my brother and I just break down and ask him if he's okay, how he's doing. And thankfully we weren't. Neither one of us was seriously injured or hurt. We had some bruises and cuts from the seat belts and the airbags going off, but no serious issues. About 10 minutes later, somebody who had witnessed the accident had called the cops and the ambulance, so we had been checked out by the ambulance, and it was just crazy. After being checked out and released by the ambulance people, I was just being bombarded with questions from the police, and of course with me being 15, I then had all these tickets. I had a ticket for not having an actual license, for running a red light, and then I had to go to court for these tickets, which also was just a big mess. Like, no 15-year-old wants to go through something like that just for something like a car accident. You don't want to witness that and never experience that. So after going to court, I then had to turn in my license, and I had to completely start all over. So had to turn in my permit, since I actually didn't have a license at the time. And then it was 6 months. I had to wait 6 months until I had to get my learner's permit. And I had to have my learner's permit for 6 months before I was then able to get my school permit. Had to have my school permit for 6 months before I was able to get my actual license. So it was about a year and a half before I could even get my license. And then I was actually 17 at the time before I had it. So this experience definitely just made me realize that, you just always have to be aware of what's happening around you, and just to know that you just always have to be cautious of things. And I definitely am thankful that the outcome was something that it could have been. So, thank you.